The coffee had gone cold again. Elira Dane pushed the chipped mug aside and rubbed her temples, fiery red hair tumbling over her fingers. 3 years monitoring deep space transmissions from the outpost on Cauldra Station had numbed her to the monotony of deep space chatter. Static. Dead stars. Cargo freighters requesting vector maps. That was her normal. That was safe. Elira stretched, bones cracking in protest. The comms bay was quiet, too quiet. Her supervisor, Marshal Rennick, had gone to his quarters hours ago. The hum of the equipment was her only company. That and the occasional flicker of readings from the long-range receivers. She reached again for her cold drink just as the console blared to life. The alarm screamed. Lights snapped on across the control board. A transmission, clear, strong, and unmistakably alien. Her pulse surged. In 3 years she had never seen anything like this. The signal was coming from the Jindari system. That meant the Arun were in trouble. The Arun had been Earth's allies for 30 years. Pale purple-skinned, wide-eyed, and gentle, the Arun were known for their medicine, their art, and their deep empathy. They had never asked Earth for anything beyond peaceful trade. Elira's fingers flew across the control panel. The signal wasn't just strong, it was urgent. It sliced through background radiation like a scalpel. Then the audio cleared. Her breath caught. It was a woman's voice. Young. Desperate. Crying. This is Arun Prime. Please, any ship, any civilization, anyone. We are under attack. Unknown hostile forces have breached our system. 3 outer colonies are already lost. Elira's blood froze. The voice continued, translated cleanly through the system. Our fleet is gone. What little we had has been wiped out. They don't talk. They don't ask for surrender. They call themselves the hegemony. They take our people alive. And we don't know what happens next. Static crackled. Then the voice again. We've detected hundreds of ships. Technology far beyond our understanding. We are not warriors, we heal, we build, we sing. We never wanted war. Please, we have children. Millions. We don't want them to die never having heard kindness. The voice cracked. Then silence. Elira stared, transfixed. The message looped again. Still clear. Still begging. Her hand moved on instinct, hitting the priority relay that would alert every senior officer aboard the station. Within minutes, Marshal Rennick stormed into the comms bay, tugging on his coat. Behind him, Captain Silas Thorne, military liaison, and Dr. Mila Voss, the alien diplomatic lead, followed. Play it again, Silas said. Elira ran the transmission. No one spoke until it ended. Dr. Voss was first. The Arun saved our people during the Dark Rift crisis. When every other species stayed silent, they sent their ships. They didn't have much. But they gave what they had. I remember, Silas muttered. My brother was one of the evacuees. They didn't even ask what was in it for them. We owe them, Rennick said grimly. And the Third Armada is only 2 jumps away. Elira was already opening a secure channel to the TDF Revenant. Admiral Kaysen Rourke appeared on the main screen within moments, groggy but sharp-eyed. Report, he said. Captain Thorne relayed everything, the signal, the data, the stakes. Rourke's jaw tightened. He was a relic of Earth's fiercest war, one of the few who had stood on the front lines during the Void Reaper siege. He knew the pain of unanswered cries for help. Transmit the full feed, Rourke ordered. Every scrap of data. I want our analysts combing through it now. Sir, Thorne said carefully, the Arun barely have a navy. Their fleet's ceremonial at best. Converted cargo ships. If this hegemony has real firepower. Rourke's voice cut in, cold and commanding. 30 years ago, they had nothing. And still risked it all to save us. They didn't weigh the odds. They didn't count losses. They just came. He looked off screen, then nodded once. Open a fleet-wide channel. All ships. All bands. Illyria didn't hesitate. Seconds later, every Terran vessel within 3 star systems was listening. This is Admiral Rourke, the Admiral's voice rang through the void. The Arun have called for aid. They are being attacked by a force calling itself the Hegemony. The enemy is larger, faster, more advanced than anything we've faced. 30 years ago, during our darkest hour, they came for us. Now it's our turn. He paused. Across the galaxy, crews held their breath. They have 3 days. Military doctrine advises we avoid confrontation with a superior enemy. But military doctrine can go to hell. Rourke's voice dropped to a growl. Plot courses. Maximum speed. Every fleet. Every hull. We have a debt to repay. And monsters like us always pay our debts. The channel cut. For a few heartbeats, silence. Then the console lit up like fireworks. Responses from every corner of human-controlled space. Vessels redirecting, squadrons mobilizing. Even civilian cargo haulers volunteering to fight. Dr. Voss wiped at her eyes. They thought no one would answer. Captain Thorne glanced at the tactical readouts. They were wrong, he said. The monsters of Earth are coming. Outside the station, the first ships jumped into hyperspace. Toward a war that would test the very soul of humanity. The Arun message spread like a shockwave through the Terran reach. Within hours, it had reached every war council, every high command deck, and every old soldier who still remembered the darkness Earth had once faced alone. Admiral Rourke's declaration wasn't just heard, it was felt. A call to arms grounded not in strategy, but in memory, in blood, in old promises never forgotten. Aboard the TDF Vindicator, Admiral Kayla Voran stood at the center of her bridge, watching the blue streaks of hyperspace stretch infinitely. Her fleet had been patrolling the Vesper Corridor, a region plagued by pirates and smugglers. Now, every single vessel in her armada was racing toward the Jindari system. Her comms officer turned to her, eyes wide. "Ma'am. Reports just in, fleets 4 and 6 are also en route to Arun space. Even the outer exploration ships are shifting course." Voran gave a tight nod. Rourke lit the fuse. They remember. She had served under the Admiral during the Void Reaper siege. She'd seen entire cities burning, civilians screaming for help that never came, until the Arun arrived in their pale silver vessels. She remembered the first time she saw them, quiet, artistic beings who did not understand war, who came anyway. "What's Earth Command saying?" she asked. "President Raylon has authorized Protocol Obsidian," her aide replied. Kayla's breath hitched. That protocol hadn't been touched in 2 decades. They're activating the Titan vaults on Luna. At that, Voran turned from the viewport. "God help them," she whispered, "we're opening the black doors." Far below the surface of Earth's moon, machines that had slumbered since the end of the Reaper War were waking. The Titan vaults weren't simply weapons factories, they were the graveyards of humanity's darkest ideas. Forbidden technologies, too dangerous to build in peace, too monstrous to ignore in war. Dr. Elias Tren, chief of Luna Engineering, escorted President Raylon through miles of metallic corridors, past production chambers filled with glowing forges and robotic arms already assembling nightmares. "The gravitic anvils will be ready in 7 hours, Tren reported. Temporal split charges will take longer, we need a 12-hour window. But the neural ghost systems? Already active." Raylon paused before a sealed vault door, where enormous spider-like machines were being armed with boarding charges and stealth plating. "What are those?" the president asked. "Dagger pods," Tren said. Boarding devices that breach hulls and deploy shock teams. Designed after studying Reaper physiology. Built to shatter morale. And those? Raylon pointed to sleek silver cones humming faintly. Consciousness disruptors, Tren whispered. One-of-a-kind tech. If it works, it won't just jam communications. It'll cut the enemy's will to fight. Permanently. On the far edge of human space, Captain Ryan Mara was preparing for a very different task. Her squadron of black steel frigates, the fastest and stealthiest ships in the Terran Defense Force, had been ordered to reach Arun space ahead of the main fleet. 6 ships, silent, invisible, deadly. Keep the chatter minimal, Mara said over a tight beam comm. No one hears us. No one sees us. We get in, observe, and we get out. Her ship, the TDF Whisper, led the formation as it vanished into hyperspace. 18 hours later, they emerged. And what they saw at the edge of the Jindari system turned their blood cold. The hegemony fleet was enormous, well over 200 capital ships, each more massive than anything in Terran history. Hundreds of smaller ships clustered around them like hornets around a queen. But it was the 3 largest ships, deeper in system, that caught Captain Mara's eye. They defied classification, miles-wide constructs that dwarfed even Arun Prime's moons. Good God, whispered Commander Jack Voss beside her. How are we supposed to fight that? Quiet, Mara said, zooming in on a mining station near the system's outer ring. One of the hegemony vessels was docked with it. Figures moved in the vacuum between hulls. Her eyes narrowed. They weren't salvaging. They were extracting. Telescopes. Now. The Whisper's high-res visuals focused in. The Arun weren't just being captured, they were being sorted, boxed, moved like inventory. They're not just invading, she said. They're harvesting. The words felt like poison in her mouth. Send a burst transmission to Rourke, Mara ordered. Include everything. Images, positions, movement patterns, energy signatures. All of it. As the Whisper slipped back into the shadows, sensors picked up something else, strange inconsistencies in the enemy fleet. Ship designs didn't match. Some looked designed for speed, others for brute force. It was as if they were built by different species, all welded together into one Frankenstein force. And then it clicked. The hegemony wasn't one race, it was a coalition of consumed civilizations, gutted and refitted, their cultures cannibalized into war machines. On Arun Prime, Prime Minister Velter stood in his defense center, staring at the encroaching doom on his display. His eyes were sunken, voice ragged. His communications officer spoke softly. We've received a response to our distress signal. Velter's head lifted. From who? Just one, the humans. A flicker of hope, then grim resignation. They'll be crushed. Tell them not to come. We did, the officer said. Their admiral responded with one word. What word? The officer met his gaze. No. Silence hung in the command chamber. Then, for the first time in days, Velter smiled. They're really coming, he said, voice breaking. God help the hegemony. Because 30 years ago, when Earth was dying, the Arun came for them. Now, Earth's monsters were coming back. Not as invaders. But as something far more terrifying. As friends with nothing left to lose. The first wave didn't arrive as a fleet. It arrived as a storm. From hyperspace, the Terran Defense Armada erupted into the Jindari system, 237 ships in perfect formation. Battleships, dreadnoughts, stealth frigates, and civilian haulers rigged for war. Engines flared, weapons charged, shields powered up. The monsters of Earth had arrived. Aboard the flagship TDF Revenant, Admiral Kason Rourke stood at the center of the tactical display. Around him, his bridge team buzzed with tension and firelight from status panels. On screen, the Hegemony's armada reacted, shifting into a battle line, vast and cold and confident. Commander Via Stroud at the tactical station muttered, "They're forming traditional blockade patterns. Capital ships in front, cruisers behind, shield walls interlinked." "Perfect," Rourke said. "They're expecting soldiers. Let's show them predators." He turned to the comms officer. "Fleet-wide broadcast. All ships. Execute Predator Protocol." A moment's silence, then chaos. Across the void, human vessels broke formation like a flock of birds under attack. No more neat rows. No more traditional tactics. Each ship moved on its own, forming rapid response strike groups and shadow teams, scattering and reforming like wolves. This wasn't civilized war. This was Earth's war. Captain Dax Calder's stealth group emerged from behind asteroid shadows in the outer belt, hidden there for hours in wait. Their first volley crippled the rear guard of the Hegemony formation. Precision plasma blasts carved engines from hulls, left ships dead in space. Within minutes, 6 enemy vessels drifted, helpless. But Calder's team wasn't finished. They didn't just cripple, they boarded. Lieutenant Vera Maddox led the charge onto a disabled Hegemony cruiser. Her armor, pitch black with glowing crimson eyes, turned her and her marines into demons. The corridor lights flickered red as they moved like shadows, breaching airlocks and disabling resistance. The enemy, unused to close-quarters combat, fell fast. "Bridge secured," Maddox reported. "Crew surrendered. Uploading NAV core now." On every frequency, Hegemony crews heard screams, weapons fire, and the echo of human soldiers taking their ships from within. It was deliberate, tactical terror. And it was working. Back at the primary battlefront, the Revenant led the charge. Captain Inez Fallon's dreadnought, the TDF Warhound, didn't fire at range. Instead, it accelerated to suicidal speeds, straight toward the Hegemony flagship. 20 enemy vessels opened fire on it, ripping at its shields and hull plating. Fallon didn't slow. "All hands, brace for collision," she said calmly. Warhound hit the Hegemony ship's side like a spear of fury. Hulls buckled, air vented, and both ships locked in a death embrace. Inside, Fallon's crew, armored and ready, flooded into enemy corridors like fire through dry grass. They weren't there to talk. Meanwhile, Admiral Kayla Voren's Fourth Fleet executed a maneuver the galaxy hadn't seen in 100 years, Sullivan's Gambit. Each ship plotted ramming vectors, not suicide runs, but precisely timed evacuations. At the last moment, human crews launched from escape pods while AI took control of the ships. The empty vessels surged forward, shields off, engines at maximum burn. A human frigate, the TDF Orion, impacted a Hegemony destroyer at .85 light speed. The collision shattered the alien ship into atoms. A second frigate tore through 3 smaller vessels in a single, brutal chain of detonations. The message was clear: humans were not afraid to lose metal. Only lives. And then, the real weapons arrived. From hyperspace, sleek black vessels emerged, Titan-class warships, birthed from Luna's forbidden vaults. They carried the relics of a darker age. Gravitic anvils fired first. The space around key enemy dreadnoughts twisted, folding under impossible mass. Artificial gravity crushed hulls inwards. Crew members were flattened against their walls, bones splintering under invisible forces. Temporal charges followed. When they detonated near enemy formations, time buckled. Hegemony ships aged decades in seconds, metal corroded, wiring turned brittle, systems blinked out as entropy consumed them. Vessels designed to last centuries collapsed in a minute. Then the neural ghost systems activated. Waves of terror. Synthetic madness. Invisible pulses rippled through enemy formations, seizing their thoughts. Captains screamed. Officers forgot how to fire. Crew turned on one another, convinced their allies were monsters. From the TDF whisper, Captain Ryan Mara listened to intercepted enemy comms. "They're falling apart," her second-in-command said. "Complete psychic disarray." "Good," Mara said, eyes cold. "Tell Rourke." "They're afraid." But Admiral Rourke wasn't finished. "Predators don't just scare," he said quietly. "They hunt." As the hegemony line buckled, human squadrons moved in, systematically picking off crippled vessels. No mercy. No survivors. The humans didn't just destroy, they dismantled, one piece at a time. Captain Ash Terran led a destroyer group into a cluster of retreating ships near the asteroid belt. One enemy cruiser tried to hide among the rocks. "Got you," Terran whispered. His squadron fired. Molecular disruptors tore through the target's atoms. The ship unraveled, its hull vanishing molecule by molecule into glowing dust. Across the battlefield, the hegemony crumbled. This was not what they expected. They had planned for resistance. Military formations. Orders. Logic. But they had run into something else entirely. A species that turned its instincts into weapons. A race that had earned the name whispered in galactic bars and war councils alike. The monsters of Earth. The space around Arun Prime had become a graveyard of steel and shattered lives. For 16 hours, the void burned with fire and fury, drifting wreckage lit by silent explosions. But even in chaos, the battle wasn't over. Not yet. Admiral Rourke stood at the edge of the bridge on the TDF Revenant, his face drawn and pale under the shifting glow of tactical readouts. His fleet, every ship that could fight, had performed beyond any commander's dreams. But the cost was rising. "Damage reports," he asked quietly. 23 ships lost, Admiral," Commander Stroud replied. "Another 67 are damaged or venting. Our reserves are low. Shield stretched thin." "And the enemy?" 60+ confirmed hegemony ships destroyed or disabled. "But..." She paused. "Their 3 command vessels remain operational. They're pulling in the survivors, forming a defensive sphere." On screen, the hegemony's 3 colossal ships loomed like moons above the burning husks of their fleet. Each ship was miles across, dark and silent, like something birthed from a dying star. "Sir," Stroud added, "we're picking up something strange. Massive biosign readings from within those ships. Tens of thousands. Maybe more." Rourke's gaze sharpened. "They're not warships." He leaned closer to the data. "They're prisons." Suddenly, the magnitude shifted. These weren't just command vessels, they were holding cells. Containing millions from every world the hegemony had crushed. Civilians. Scientists. Children. "God," Stroud whispered. "They've been storing them." Aboard the mangled remains of the hegemony flagship, Captain Fallon and her boarding squads continued their grim advance. They weren't just capturing, they were uncovering horror. Lieutenant Grady burst into the command center, panting. "Captain, we found it. Their core systems. It's worse than we thought." The data they retrieved hit the Terran command like a freight train. Detailed logs catalogued every species they had harvested, every mine studied, every genetic profile filed. It wasn't just prison, it was research. Construction. A blueprint for something worse. They were building a weapon. A living weapon, fueled by the intelligence, biology, and essence of every species they had enslaved. Admiral Rourke saw the footage. Rage boiled just beneath the surface of his composure. "All ships," he ordered. "New objective, extract every prisoner. No heavy weapons. No disintegration fields. These ships aren't targets anymore, they're rescue zones." A silence stretched across the fleet. This was the hardest part of war, not fighting, but saving. And then a voice broke through the tactical channel. "Admiral, this is Lieutenant Kyan Voss aboard the Phantom. I might have a way to shut them down." "All of them?" Rourke's eyes narrowed. "Go on." "The Phantom was built to house the prototype disruptor," Voss said. "A mind scrambler. Designed for collective species like the hegemony. If I get close enough to the command vessels, I think I can cut their connection. Sever the hive. You'd have to fly directly into the heart of their formation," Rourke said, eyes narrowing. "Through live fire. You wouldn't make it out." "I know," she said softly. He hesitated. "Voss, you're just a kid." "I'm red-haired, not stupid," she replied. "And I'm not doing this to be a hero. The Arun saved my brother during the Reaper crisis. This is how I pay them back." Before Rourke could object, the Phantom moved. Sleek. Silent. Alone. It streaked toward the hegemony core like a knife into the belly of a beast. Hegemony vessels opened fire. Beams. Missiles. Neural distorters. The Phantom's shields flared and failed. Hull plating tore away. Alarms screamed. The ship bled vapor and light. But Voss didn't stop. She pushed the reactor beyond limits, guiding the ship manually through storms of death. Her hands moved with the calm of someone who had already made peace with the end. "Fleet," she said, broadcasting to every Terran vessel. "Tell my mom I made it count." Then she activated the disruptor. A pulse spread outward like a psychic explosion. Invisible. Immediate. Irreversible. Across the hegemony fleet, minds collapsed. The collective link, thousands of voices woven into one, shattered. Ships veered off course. Crews screamed as their consciousnesses snapped. Some vessels fired on their own. Others simply shut down, drifting in silence. And the three command ships went dark. Engines dead. Weapons offline. Aboard the Revenant, Rourke clenched his fists. All ships. Board and rescue. Now. The final phase had begun. Captain Fallon led the charge into one of the command ships. What they found inside would haunt every Terran soul who saw it. Endless corridors of cells. Creatures of every shape and language. Most barely alive. Some hadn't spoken in years. Others had forgotten their names. Scientists from shattered worlds. Children born in chains. The human fleet transformed overnight into a humanitarian armada. Medical ships docked. Cargo bays became triage centers. Civilians were pulled from nightmares into light. In all, over 4 million prisoners from 37 species were freed. Each one a survivor of genocide. 3 weeks later, Admiral Rourke stood aboard the hospital ship Sanctum, watching Arun doctors and Terran medics working side by side. The air smelled of disinfectant and hope. Dr. Mila Voss approached, tablet in hand. "We've confirmed survivors from the Carthan Belt, the Lunian Reach, the Marin Sanctuaries, worlds we thought were dead. They were alive. Just buried." "And the hegemony?" Rourke asked. 300 survivors from their command ships," she said. "They're broken. Their hive link is gone. They keep whispering, asking for their voices back." Later that day, as construction began on a new station orbiting Arun Prime, built from hegemony wreckage, the comms officer approached Admiral Rourke with a pad. "Prime Minister Terran of Arun wishes to speak." Rourke accepted the call. Terran appeared, older than before, his violet skin bruised by stress but eyes filled with gratitude. "You came," Terran said. "Even when we told you not to." "We remembered," Rourke replied. "You saved us when no one else did." Terran's voice cracked. "We sent our medical ships back then, terrified of the consequences. But fear wasn't reason enough to let people die. We made our choice. And so did we. The memorial service was held in orbit. Ships from every fleet floated in silent formation. At the center, a monument, constructed from fused hegemony hulls, drifted beneath banners of every rescued species. Admiral Rourke read the names of the Terran dead. When he reached Kyan Vos, he stopped. Cleared his throat. She chose to be the monster the universe needed, he said. And we'll never forget her. Back on Earth, a monument rose from the ruins of Geneva. Beneath a great spire, the inscription read. They answered the call, knowing the cost. They chose to be what the universe needed, not what it wanted. And below that, the coordinates of every Terran patrol route lit up like stars. A promise. The monsters of Earth were listening. And they would always answer. In the weeks that followed, the story of the battle for Arun Prime swept across the galaxy. Governments rewrote their doctrines. Empires re-evaluated their alliances. Species that once feared the Terrans now studied them with something deeper. Respect mixed with caution. Because Earth had not fought for territory. They hadn't fought for resources or revenge. They had fought because someone asked for help. And the monsters of Earth had answered. Admiral Kayla Voren, now stationed aboard the newly commissioned Sentinel's Reach in the Jindari system, received a new alert. A distress signal. This time from the Altari clans, once neutral, once silent when Earth had burned. Set course, she said. It's time they learned what happens when the monsters answer the call. And so the ships moved again. Quiet in the dark. Fire waiting to be lit. If you felt a chill in the stars, a tremor in the void, it was the sound of humanity stirring. Not out of vengeance. But because somewhere, someone was afraid. And fear alone wasn't reason enough to let people die. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and share it with anyone who believes in second chances, and remembers the ones who answered the call when no one else would. Until next time, stay safe. And remember. The monsters are listening.